Last week, I had to go to Target to return 3 iPads that I bought over Black Friday. It was a sale, and they have a 30-day return policy on iPads or electronics, and it had been something like over 100 days. So it was a little bit of a task to get them to give me my money back, but I did manage to get it in the end, and so I wanted to talk about how I did it and how you can use some of these strategies to negotiate with customer service. Now, everybody knows it's kind of a pain to talk to customer service, but I like to look at it as an opportunity to practice these negotiation skills. And because of that, there are a couple of ground rules that I like to go by. First of all, I don't lie. Besides the ethical reasons for not lying, it's just a weak tactic. If you are lying, it's because you've run out of skill, and there's really nothing skillful about lying your way into a situation. Of course, there's also the point that if you're practicing for negotiation, whenever it's high stakes, there's even more reason not to lie because the consequences are really, really bad if you lose trust or if you lose the trust of the other party. The second ground rule is I treat people well. Now, of course, there are moral reasons for doing this, but if you're not convinced by that because you think, hey, I'm not going to see this person again, well, I just think it's much more effective. If I get angry or upset while I'm dealing with somebody, it usually tends to bump up the adrenaline in my system, and I tend to forget what my strategy was before, and I forget how to be effective. And it tends to make the other person really defensive, which usually makes things harder. So let's get into the story. I was in Target, I had brought the iPads with me, I rolled up to customer service, there was a girl named Sally behind the desk, and I asked her hey, I have this return receipt that I printed out online, can you return these for me? And she scanned the receipt and then turned the screen over and said, I'm sorry, it says return declined, there's nothing I can do, I can't return these for you. Now the important part here is that I immediately realized that this is going to be beyond Sally's pay grade. I was asking her for a very expensive item to go beyond the policy, and she really was going to be able to make the exception herself. Now the tempting part here is just ask for the manager and kind of step over Sally, but an important part of the process for me is actually making that person my ally as opposed to somebody I just need to move out of my way. So instead of asking for her manager, I instead asked her for advice. And I said, hey, so Sally, it looks like this is hard for you to do. What do you suggest I do? And so she said, well, it looks like you purchased them online. Maybe you could call the online customer service. And so I asked for the number and I pulled up my phone and said, okay, I'm gonna call them right here. And instead of moving on to the next customer, what she did is she went in the back, got the landline, and actually started calling customer service on my behalf for me without even asking. So at that moment, I was like, oh, I realize she's continuing to help me. I'm gonna hang up the phone and let her continue to help. So count that as a win for making her my ally. So Sally is talking to the other customer service agent, and she eventually hands the landline to me, and I start talking to the agent, and of course I run into a brick wall. The agent is just repeating lines of script. She keeps saying things like, I just need to inform you, sir, that we have a 30-day return policy, and she kept going over the script over and over again. So again, I realized, okay, this is not gonna work. She's not gonna be able to do anything for me. And again, I asked, okay, I appreciate you helping me. Is there a supervisor there that I might be able to talk to? So I waited a few minutes on the phone, and after a couple of minutes, this guy named Brandon comes on the phone, and you'll notice that I remember all of their names. And the reason is because I made a point to remember the name, I made a point to use their names in the conversation, and I wanted to treat them as people. I mean, everybody treats customer service agents as just a function in their life, and the more you can jump out of that box and treat them as people, one, by using the name, and also by using a tone of voice that is friendly and kind of casual, then you can start to jump out of the box of them just being in work mode and applying the rules as it lays. So I started talking to Brandon and I said, hey, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I was having a hard time understanding the last agent, and I didn't mention that it was super frustrating because I didn't want to complain at all. And I said, this is the situation. I bought these iPads. It was a long time ago, but the return receipt says that the last day to return was actually 10 days ago. It's totally my fault for not bringing it in sooner. And Brandon informs me that actually the return policy is 30 days. It's not 90 days, and that it said 90 days on that return receipt. It was actually a misprint. And so actually he's like, that's all we can do. Unfortunately for electronics, we only have a 30-day window. So at this point, I've been told no 3 different times by 3 different people at 3 different levels, and it was not looking good. I mean, I didn't think I was gonna be able to do this, but I figured I'm here, I may as well just continue with my strategy. And my strategy was 3 different things. It was treat people really well, don't just take the no lying down, and then if they get no, try to turn that person into my ally as opposed to just trying to convince them to do the return for me. And so I went down the natural process. He had said no to me, so I wanted to turn him into my ally. In order to turn him into my ally, I use what was called a calibrated question, and I'll link to another video I did specifically on calibrated questions. But what I said to Brandon was, oh, that's really unfortunate. How am I supposed to keep these if I have no use for them? So it was a very differential question, but it's a calibrated question because it's meant to put them in my shoes, give them my perspective. How am I supposed to keep these if I have no use for them? So Brandon, I just stayed quiet, and what I get back from Brandon is, well, why did you want to return them in the first place? Now this is the point where I realized I was making headway. As soon as he moved out of his script of like, hey, this is the policy, we can't apply it, here are the rules, you don't fit into them. As soon as he started asking for my reasoning and he was treating me as a person, I knew that I was making headway. So I told him the truth. I said, look, I bought these for my business. I thought we were gonna need all 4 of them, but it turns out we only needed 1 of them, so I'm returning the other 3. They're still in the plastic. And you know, I screwed up and I'm a little late on what I thought was a return date. So I guess you can see where this is going. He says, okay, let me see if there's anything I can do. And I say, Brandon, I really appreciate you going to bat for me. Thank you so much. He goes away, talks to his lead or somebody else, and then he comes back and says, hey, can I talk to Sally again? They talk on the phone, and what actually ends up happening is he gives me my money back via the online transaction, and then Sally actually opened up each one of the iPads and then kept them in the store as an open item. So it was completely outside the rules, completely breaking all of their, return policies, but he did it because he treated me as a person and not just as somebody who did or didn't fit into the return policy of Target. Now, if Brandon had not asked me why I was returning them and not gone down that path, I might have asked another question, which was, hey, do you think you could ask your manager if there's anything else you can do for me? And at that point, I wouldn't be asking Brandon if he could do the return for me. He's already said no. But if I asked him, hey, can you become my ally and ask for me? That's a much easier ask that he can agree to. And I also didn't say, hey, can you ask your manager if you can do the return for me? I said, can you ask your manager if there's anything you can do for me? Which means it's a much broader range of possible solutions, and maybe the manager would, give me store credit or something that would be better than just saying no. So let's recap what actually worked here. First, don't take no as the first answer and then just walk away. What they're saying no to is your approach versus their rules. And oftentimes that's not gonna be what actually works for you. If it does, you're not really negotiating, you're just doing the return. What you want here is an exception, and so you need to be exceptional in the way that you ask for it. Second, make sure you understand when you've reached the edge of what somebody's able to do for you because of the rules that they're playing by. If you are talking to somebody who is, low on the totem pole in customer service, they have rules and responsibilities. They don't want to lose their job, and you have to be cognizant of that. Be aware that they're a human as well. Treat them like a human, and then turn them into your ally. Turn them into somebody who even just emotionally, they want you to win in some way. If you've done that, one, you come away from the interaction feeling good about yourself, they'll feel good about your interaction with them, and it just generally is a good way of dealing with it, and it ends up being super, super effective, as I showed in my example. Now that last thing I mentioned, a calibrated question, is actually a super effective way to orient the other person's thinking around your perspective. And I'll link again to that video up top where I went deep into calibrated questions and a lot of different types of them, so definitely check that out. First, don't take no. There's a truck. A truck going by all the time, truck going by. I'll be coming at you. I hope you can see how you can take this example and then extrapolate it into any scenario with customer service or any other scenario you have in your life. I think it's in these small opportunities that we have daily that it becomes a really great learning opportunity to learn how to use these skills and learn how to advocate for yourself and not take no and keep pushing forward and treat people well at the same time. If you like this video, let me know, hit the like button, and of course, hit me up in the comments if you have questions. I'm coming at you with a video every single week. I'll see you in the next one.